My disabled sister has level 3 autism, which basically means somebody has to watch after her almost all the time because she's not a functioning adult by herself. I am the one who's put my life through heck, watching her, not being able to attend school, you name it, while my parents make me the babysitter. Well, I just had one request. I finally was able to go to school and I met the love of my life, and I begged my parents, please, whatever you do, do not let my sister wear a white wedding dress. It's really important to my mom that she wears this white wedding dress because my mom fears that she'll never have the opportunity to see her other daughter walk down the aisle, and she wants to be a part of this special day. I'm saying, please don't do that. It'll ruin the entire wedding. And well, this is what she has to say.
I turned down a free wedding and uninvited my immediate family. That sounds harsh, but let me explain. I have a sordid history with my immediate family, and for some background, my younger sister Lacey has level 3 autism, which basically means she's low functioning, can't really be independent, and will need assistance for the rest of her life. She's been the center of my and my parents' world ever since the diagnosis. Mostly my world, if I'm being honest. After numerous assessments, the doctors told my parents that it would be better for our family if Lacey was placed in a residence where she could get round-the-clock care because she'd need it. Also, her violent outburst made her a danger to everyone around her. They would not be able to take her on vacations or outings, and she'd basically be confined to the house and yard and would need constant supervision around the clock. Both my parents were working full-time jobs, and most of our extended family lived in the other states, save for my paternal grandparents who were very old and unable to keep up with the demands of a low-functioning autistic child. My parents did not want to put Lacey in a care facility, saying they did not want to, quote, abandon their child. The doctors explained that they'd be able to visit her whenever they wanted and even take her out and spend time with her, but they still refused. I remember for a while how stressed out they were from having to alter their schedules to make sure somebody was around to watch Lacey. They would fight and scream a ton at me, at Lacey, and especially at each other, and now that I think about it, I'm shocked they did not get divorced when we were younger. As soon as I was old enough to legally be left alone in the house with Lacey, I became her primary caregiver. My parents would find excuses to stay out late, go out on the weekends, and leave me in the house with her. I would have to confine myself and Lacey to one room, either the living room or her bedroom, to make sure she did not hurt herself. Our entire house was baby-proofed. Example, the plugs covered, sharp objects put in places where she could not find them. That did not stop her from hurting me. She would punch me, kick me, push me down, you name it. All my parents would do was just tell me, well, stop aggravating her. They would make excuses for her all the time, and one time, I went to school with bruises on my arms and face, and my teacher sent me to the guidance counselor, who then called a social worker because she thought that I was being abused. They were technically right. My parents were called in and had to spend 2 hours of their working day talking to the guidance counselor and social worker, and they even sent someone over to the house to make sure, well, it was safe. Another time, she pushed me into the wall so hard I got a concussion and passed out. Lacey somehow got out of the house, and one of the neighbors called the police, and my parents found Lacey in the middle of the streets with the cops refusing to move, and found me unconscious on the living room floor. I had to be rushed to the hospital, and my father had to call in a lot of favors to stop the cops from arresting him and Mom. The hospital called another social worker, and my parents were grilled for hours. They had to agree to either let me live with my paternal grandparents for a while or get a proper caregiver for Lacey. Of course, they chose the cheaper option, and I lived with my grandparents for a year, what I consider to be the best year of my childhood, but my parents got agitated with having to deal with Lacey alone and made me move back home. At this point, I was in high school and sick of basically doing my parents' job. I took on a lot of extracurricular activities, so I would have an excuse to stay away from home for longer and lied to my parents that I needed to do them to graduate. Whenever I was home alone with Lacey, I would make sure she got fed, but leave her on her own in her room. I'd only look in if I heard something weird and unusual. I was sick of getting beat up and bruised. When I got to my senior year, I applied to colleges far, far away. My parents kept suggesting I go to a local school so I could continue living at home, and they didn't know which school I was going to until I was packed up and headed out. My grandparents offered to pay for my plane ticket, and I got a full scholarship. They were so mad. They yelled. They screamed. They tried to guilt me into staying, and they said I was selfish and did not care about them nor my sister. For the record, I love my sister. I just can't deal with her. And I can't deal with my parents not wanting to deal with her. So going off to college was me just taking my life back. There I met my now fiancé Jacob, and we found out we were from the same state and hit it off immediately. He's kind, sweet, funny, and an all-around nice guy. I was majoring in finance, and he was majoring in science. My parents would call me all the time, asking me when I was coming home to visit, etc. They would complain about Lacey, quote, being a handful, and just tell them I'm not sure, and hang up. I actually did go back to my home state once with Jake and stayed with his family, who were very lovely. When I graduated, my parents could not come out to see me because they had no one to take care of Lucy. Not that I wanted them to, they did not even congratulate me when I called. They were just like, so you're coming home now, right? The answer was yes and no. Both Jake and I found paid internships in our home state, but they were 2 hours away from my parents. One time, my mom drove the 2 hours and showed up at my job and nearly got me fired. She was loitering in the lobby, asking everybody if I was there, and I saw her when I went down for my lunch break, and I grabbed her by the hand, dragged her out of there, and as soon as we got to the car, I let loose. I yelled at her and told her never to show up at my job or I'd never speak to her again. And I said, no, I'm not coming home. You and Dad need to be responsible for once and take care of your own dang child and leave me alone. I did not wait to see her reaction, but that was the last time I saw her until about 2 months ago. Jake and I got engaged last year, something I had not informed my immediate family about, but, my grandparents knew, because I did not want them to bother me. I sent my mother an invitation 2 months ago, and she's been texting me nonstop ever since. She said she and Dad can cover our expenses, which I was tempted to accept, since Jake and I really are strapped for cash right now, and will need to give most of the vendors a down payment soon, but I'm weary of their intentions, and I don't want to be indebted to them, and then they return and just say, hey, now that we gave you this, we want you to be Lacey's caretaker again. A ploy. She texted me a few days ago about going dress shopping for her and Lacey. This would be a good time to bring up that I had one rule for my wedding. No one is to wear white. It's on the invitation, and I reiterated it to everyone else via text or phone. Most people hate wearing white anyway, so no one really had an issue. So why did my mom text me a pic of Lacey in a white dress that looked eerily like a wedding dress? I text her back saying absolutely not, get Lacey a regular dress that's not white. And she said she thought Lacey could share this moment with me since she'll probably never able to get married herself. She also wanted Lacey to walk down the aisle with me, so she also could know what it was like and what it felt like. My response to both these things were an empathetic no. My mom got mad and said I was being selfish and inconsiderate of my sister's feelings, that I should be happy to share my day with her and give her an experience she would otherwise be denied since she can barely leave the home First of all, I was apprehensive about them even bringing her in the first place, because I was worried about her having an absolute meltdown. Most of my sister's outbursts stem from being denied access to things. For example, if she wants to sit on the floor and it's dangerous to sit on the floor, she's not hearing the dangerous part. She's hearing that you're denying her access to the floor. And then, well, all hell breaks loose. She'll scream, she'll fight, she'll make a scene, and my parents told me she's on medicine. That's been helping her a lot. However, my grandparents who often visit my parents say that's simply not true. My grandfather showed me a picture where she bit him because he picked up one of her toys so Grandma would not accidentally step or trip on it. I'm having a garden wedding. One of Jake's best friend's parents is graciously letting us use their yard for both the wedding and reception. And I'd arranged to have a small room in the house, baby-proofed of course, so Lacey could go in there if she felt overwhelmed. But it looks like, it won't be needed anymore. My mom threatened to not pay for the wedding if I don't let my sister wear white and walk up the aisle with me. I took a day to think about it and really think it over and talk to Jake. He said, hey, it's your day. And if my mother could respect my wishes on this one day, then she does not respect me at all. So I texted her and told her that she, Father, and Lacey were no longer on the guest list, and I would have still invited Lacey if there was a caretaker present for her, but nobody wants that responsibility. I'm fine with not having them there. They've never really been my parents anyways. They've just used me as a babysitter and got mad at me when I tried to live my own life. Not having the money sucks, and in any other circumstance I may have sucked it up. Jake's parents have offered us a flexible non-interest loan. It's still a lot of money, and it's going to take a while to pay it back since we're just getting started with our careers, but at least I know they'll be more gracious than my parents. My dad called me last night to try to reason with me, saying my mom was just trying to do a nice thing for Lacey since she rarely gets to leave the home, and they'd still be willing to pay for everything if I just reversed my decision. Walking up the aisle, I was just a tiny part of the ceremony anyway, so it won't matter. I told him that my decision is final, and that the only way they were coming to the wedding is if they get Lacey a new dress. If they're not calling me to tell me that, then don't call me at all. I've learned that the best way to deal with my priest is to be firm and resolute with them. If you give them the tiniest bit of leeway, they'll take advantage of you and run a mile. I'm too busy trying to sort out all this wedding stuff, and I don't need the added stress and drama from them. What's up, everybody? Mr. Reddito here. Okay, so today's story is a wild one. I do have 3 updates for you guys, and yes, this story is rather sad because, hey, OP was not born to be a babysitter, but at the same time, it's not her sister's fault. Alright guys, let's just go ahead and jump into update number 1, and if you're new to the channel, take a second, hit that subscribe button, and here's your update. Well, my wedding was a few days ago, and guess what? My parents tried to show up anyways, and they technically had an invitation, but their name was not on the guest list anymore. I double-checked, and, well, I triple-checked. They showed up about half an hour before the ceremony was due to start, and one of the groomsmen came up and told me that some people were out there asking for me. I was adding the finishing touches to my makeup at the time, and when I looked out the window, I saw my mother and father out front, and Lacey was right there in her white dress, sitting in the lawn with nobody supervising her. I luckily had people at the door vetting everyone who came because I knew something like this would happen. I told the groomsmen to tell the people at the door to not let them in because they are not invited. Period. They threw a fit and said they were the ones paying for the whole wedding, so they had a right to be there, and I was not about to let them ruin my day, so I gave them one final warning. Leave, or I will call the police and have them escorted off the premises for trespassing. Still, they did not budge. Still, they insisted on being there. My grandparents went out and tried to reason with them, but they would not listen. As far as they were concerned, they had a right to be there. At one point, it got loud, and the homeowners were concerned that it would turn into a huge fight. I was worried that this was going to cause unnecessary delays, and we planned for some, but nothing this big. Well, I did not think my parents would be so stubborn and petty. Well, maybe stubborn for sure. They've been this way my whole dang life. But all this over Lacey not being able to wear a white dress? I mean, come on! Anyways, the police showed up, and after the situation was explained to them, they asked my parents to leave, or they would simply be arrested for trespassing. They tried to grab Lacey, who was still sitting in the grass, and she had absolutely, well, a meltdown. The police looked like they wanted to intervene, but my grandparents explained that she was autistic. It took them around 15 minutes to get her in the car, and they finally left. The ceremony was delayed a good 20 minutes, but it was still lovely, and nobody seemed upset about having to wait. If anything, my parents' antics added a bit more excitement to the mix, if you will. I simply would not allow this to ruin my special day. I still had an awesome time at my wedding. The food was great, the caterers really knocked it out of the ballpark, and it was nice seeing some of my extended family and friends from high school and college. Update number 2. So, my parents have apparently turned me into the villain of the family. Some of my extended family members who attended were gushing about how great the ceremony was and that they wish more people had small weddings. My parents lied and told them they paid for the whole thing, but when they showed up, I called the police and had them thrown out because I hate my sister and did not want her at my wedding. If that wasn't bad enough, my mom posted this lie on Facebook. It was on some mom group, and I had to delete my social media because of all the death threats. Someone even doxed me and threatened to come to my house, and if you don't know what doxing is, it's releasing all your information to the public. It's been absolutely awful. I've had to get the police involved, and what sucks is that this is happening right after our honeymoon, when we're trying to enjoy our new life together and get back into the groove of work and adulting. I've been getting so distracted at my job because this is all I've been able to think about. Jake and his parents have been super supportive through all this, and I'm grateful for their help. I have proof that what my parents are telling everyone is simply not true, but no one's listening to me except for my cousins. I showed her all the receipts and told her about the loan Jake and I got from his parents. My parents did not spend one dime on anything wedding related, and my cousins said they were supposed to be having something for my grandmother's birthday, and I should tell everyone there. It's a milestone birthday, so it's gonna be huge and extravagant, with lots of family driving and flying in. I'm seriously considering it because I don't appreciate having my name dragged through the mud and death threats thrown my way for things I never did or said. I've been spending the last few days compiling evidence to show everyone and making a video my family could play during the party. I also called my grandparents to ask if it was okay for me to play it, and they were behind me 100%. It took me around an hour to make the video and another hour to edit all the evidence. I sat down with Jake and we watched it together. He suggested that I add some backstory of my relationship with Lacey because it's very possible that my parents have been lying to our family and friends about how severe Lacey's behavioral issues really were, especially when we were young and did not know any better. They also may have never told our family of the times CPS was called and when I ended up in the hospital. They've always wanted to make themselves out to be great parents, which was the whole reason behind them not putting Lacey in a residence where she could get round-the-clock care. I went the next day to get a copy of my hospital records as proof, so it would not be turned into some he-said, she-said argument, and I'm ready. The party's next weekend, so wish me luck. Update number 3. This is the final update. Hey guys. The party was 2 days ago, and my phone's still blowing up with text messages and calls, but I thought I'd take a moment to update everyone here. Jake and I went to the party together. We arrived a little late to make sure everyone was there, and I could feel the hostility from the moment we walked in. People were refusing to make eye contact, and some of them were giving us very dirty looks. Thank goodness I had Jake for support, or I may have folded under the pressure. I knew my parents and Lacey were there, but I did not even look for them. I greeted my grandparents first and gave my grandma her birthday gift. After that, I discreetly passed a USB flash drive with the video to my cousin, which had a projector set up with pictures of my grandma at various stages of her life. I knew if I went over there, everyone would become suspicious. Thankfully, my cousin was willing to collude. While she got the video going, I tried to figure out where Lacey was, and after this, I was planning to go no contact with my parents, which also meant going no contact with her. I found out my parents left her at home with a nurse/caretaker, and I have no idea when they hired one of those, but I suppose it should not be surprising. They never want to be around her, they just pretend to. By the time I got outside, the video was playing. My family watched on in shock as I laid out receipt after receipt after receipt, proving my innocence. I included text where Jake's parents offered to give us a loan, and text where I told my mom and dad they could come if they just changed Lacey's dress. That simple. I even showed screenshots from DMs where I was getting death threats. Jake and I grabbed our food and cake and left the party early. As soon as I got into the car, the apologies started pouring in. Family members who'd called me all manner of selfish and ungrateful were now telling me how sorry they were and how appalling my parents' behavior was. I felt so vindicated. My parents called me yesterday screaming and yelling about how I was embarrassing them in front of the family, and they said if I had an issue, I could have just dealt with it in private instead of airing out the dirty laundry for everybody to see. I told them I did what I had to do to clear my name, then blocked them every single place I could, and the only person I feel bad for is Lacey. She's stuck with two parents who could care less about her true well-being, and they use her as a prop to make themselves look like saints because, quote, raising a child with a disability is hard. I can't be bothered with them anymore. They either need to take responsibility for Lacey or simply put her in a facility where she can get the care and attention she needs. It feels good now that family can see them for who they truly are. I'm gonna be focusing on my life from here on out and my husband and furthering my career. But hey, I wish them all the best.
Okay, so I do have a question for you guys about this story. It seems like the comment section is a little bit mixed. At the end of it, we find out that OP aired the so-called dirty laundry to the entire family. About half of the commenters were saying, you know what, you went a little too far. You should have just handled this in private. But there was another half of the commenters saying, no, she should not have had to handle this in private. Her parents were making her a babysitter for her whole life. She did not ask for this, and neither did her sister. So I want to hear from you guys which side you're on, and maybe you would have done something differently. Drop your comments right below in the comment section. I want to thank you for joining me today. If you're new to the channel, my name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every single day, so stop by tomorrow, see what stories we're doing. I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Have a fantastic day.